Hi, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us. I am Jody Collada, Director of Business and Caregiver Outreach with Wellspring Solutions. And it's so important for you, especially now, to know that you are not alone, to have access to meaningful and helpful information, to learn about resources, and to just, be together, whether it's virtual, while we can't be meeting in person. So as with so many agencies and organizations, our caregiver support offerings are virtual right now. And we're so excited to be able to partner with this great team at Pace of the Triad to offer this summer boot camp of sorts. We're going to be talking about kind of like a skills training, and hopefully you will find this very beneficial. But before we begin, I just want to briefly share with you some of the services that we offer at Wellspring Solutions and how you can access our resources. So I'm just going to share with you some information. Let's see here. Okay, so just briefly, when we are able to operate normally, we offer memory screenings and memory fitness classes for those in the community who might be a little bit concerned about their memory, or they want to learn strategies and techniques to enhance their memory. We also offer a 5-week session called Dementia Dialogues, where we get together and we talk about ways to communicate with someone who has dementia. We also have our Memory Care Center, which is right now open to a limited capacity, and we are just hopeful to be able to expand the service safely to others in the community sometime soon, as well as our connection programs, which are our half-day group respite locations. So as I said, we're offering caregiver education and support on a virtual basis, and you can access the videos that we have done, that we have recorded, so you can watch them in the comfort of your own home and at your leisure. If you go to the website below, well-springsolutions.org, you can also access our caregiver support group information. We also offer home care. Our certified nursing assistants can assist you with activities of daily living, with light housekeeping, with meal preparation, and we are here to help you. And if you have any questions about what services might best meet your needs, please just give us a call, or you can call Nicole, our navigator, for more information. So now, let me just get off the screen here. I am going to turn it over to Stephanie Wallace, the intake coordinator with Pace of the Triad, and she is going to go ahead and lead right now. Okay.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off, Jody. Thank you. I am Stephanie Wallace. I'm an intake coordinator at Pace of the Triad, and I want to welcome you all to our Caregiver Boot Camp presentation on this evening. PACE is an acronym, and it stands for Program for All-Inclusive Care of the Elderly. And we are a managed care program that helps adults age 55 years old and older. And we provide medical support and services to help them to continue to live in the community. We have been serving Guilford and Rockingham counties for 9 years now. So yeah, we just had a birthday in July. Oh, earlier this month. Yeah, we just had a birthday earlier this month. So this evening, some of our staff are going to provide you with some caregiving tips and techniques to help provide care to your loved ones in your home. So we have Taylor Zabinski, one of our social workers. She's going to be providing some self-care tips. We have Elaine Nozel, our occupational therapist, going to give us some transfer tips. And Miss Ellen Smith is one of our nurses. She's going to talk to us about elimination and incontinence and incontinence supplies. So first on deck, we have Miss Taylor Zabinski. And if you give me a second, I'm going to change my screen. If you give me just a minute, and I'll let Taylor, take it away.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Taylor Zabinski, and as they mentioned earlier, I am the social worker and community liaison here at PACE of the Triad. In my role as a social worker here, I do a lot of connecting the participants and their caregivers to resources, and those include, support groups, food resources, and transportation. I really provide a lot of ongoing support to both the participants and their caregivers. I do this by being an advocate for them here at PACE, and our team really does collaborate to provide them around the support care. But I knew some of you may or may not be a part of PACE, so I'm happy that you joined us, and I hope there's some information you can get from all of us and have any questions answered when I or any of my other colleagues are finished. So I'll go ahead and get started with my piece, and what I'm going to be talking about with you all today is taking care of yourself. In order to be a caregiver, you have to be able to take care of yourself to live on comfortably. So you have to be able to practice and engage in things that will sustain you through your journey, and it can be a very long journey. My hope for you today is that you can leave with my short tips and apply them to your daily life. I did create a document full of resources that included some support groups both in Rockingham and Guilford counties. Those are specific in Reedsville, High Point, and Greensboro. And our partner also, Wellspring, here today has a support group on July 28th via GoToMeeting. So if you are interested in that, I think that you can email someone, and I hope that I mention that later in this presentation. And there are some other resources on there too, just to look at your convenience. So let's talk about caregiving. Caregiving is frustrating and exhausting. You feel anguish, fear, and even more exhaustion. You're having to find a doctor, deal with equipment, things that you didn't even know about, such as grab bars and toilet seats. You're having to figure out how much it takes to get from moms to work and to home again. And that is just some of the many things that caregivers deal with. And as time goes on, things can get worse. These are a lot of the things many of the caregivers and I work with experience, and that's just not the half of it. So on the other hand, though, I hear often that being able to take care of their loved one or the person is what uplifts them and gives them the motivation to keep them going every day. It's one of the most rewarding and selfless things you can do. So I want to thank all of you here today for taking on that role and doing it selflessly. So I really do appreciate all of you. So not pausing and taking a break can sometimes lead to you feeling consumed and taxed as a caregiver, and it leads to caregiver stress. So you may ask, what does this social worker mean by caregiver stress? So caregiver stress is the result of the everyday responsibility that you have on your shoulders. It leaves you feeling pressured, and which in turn leads to fatigue, anxiety, and depression. Studies actually show that there are consistent higher levels of depressive symptoms and other higher mental health problems among caregivers than their non-caregiving peers. So what I'm talking about with a caregiver, and that could be anyone that really takes on that responsibility for someone that is dependent upon them. So that can be a child, a sibling, a church member, a longtime friend, anyone that really accepts that responsibility because that person is now dependent upon you. When someone becomes dependent on you, that puts a lot of pressure on you. And when you're pressured, you can sometimes forget about how to take care of yourself. And so I hope today that these things can help and apply to your life, and you can start applying them today. But just due to my limited time, I'm going to share 3 important things, and I hope you can take this with you, and it is around self-care. So the definition of self-care is to practice any activity deliberately in order to take care of your mental and emotional and physical needs. So that's doing things such as reading a book, going outside, praying, meditating, and even eating your favorite snacks such as M&Ms. And I hope you guys have some of your favorite things that you do yourself. So my 3 things I'm going to leave with you are: 1, seek support. Support groups are spaces where others can understand those uncomfortable feelings you don't quite feel comfortable sharing with family or friends because they just don't quite get it, such as the feeling of "I can't do this anymore" or "when will mom pass?" Support groups give you that community, and I really want to emphasize that. So you have to seek support from those around you, even if it's just for 20 minutes. So 2, find respite. Respite can be as little as 20 minutes. taking a walk, eating an apple on the porch, taking a bath, talking with a friend on the phone. Respite is really something everyone should do because it really gives your mind time to take a break. Give yourself permission to find help and savor those moments that you're able to have respite. And there's no shame in needing help, and I try and emphasize that a lot. Um, so 3, don't take things so personal. And what I mean by that is sometimes we kind of read too much into what mom, dad, or the person is doing. So why do they think I am their mom? Why do they call the CNA their wife? Why is she not doing her hair like she used to? Those are the type of thoughts that lead you to put up guards and prevent you from being able to uplift yourself and savor those moments with the person you're caring for. I think the best thing I've shared with some of my caregivers, and I still get thanked for it today, is just to go with it. Mom's socks don't always have to match, and dad doesn't always have to shave. And just because they think you're your mom doesn't mean that this has to be a bad thing. When you can learn not to take things so personal, you're able to recognize that this is an effect of their aging and disease process. You can learn a lot about the person in those moments, and you try and reminisce with them because that gives them comfort and helps them. I hope you can still find joy and uplift yourself in that moment too. And it's those moments that caregivers share with me that make it worth it. So the 3 things I share with you today are all things you can start doing. So 1, seek support through a support group, friends, family, someone you trust. 2, find some respite. 3, try not to take things so personal. There is no shame in taking care of you. I said it earlier and I will say it again. You have to be able to take care of yourself in order to take care of someone else. You have to love you to love someone else. So I hope this has helped you, and if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but if not, I know they'll kind of go ahead and get started with everything else. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Taylor. That was wonderful. Thank you for giving us those tips. Just wanted to quickly check in with Jody to learn if there are any questions for Taylor in the chat box.
Any questions at this time, but please feel free to use your chat. Does anyone have a question and they want to unmute themselves? There's no questions via chat though. Okay, please don't be shy. We're going to move forward, but if you do have any questions, please use your chat feature or you can unmute yourself. Thank you.
Okay, well, next we are going to hear from Miss Elaine Nozel, our occupational therapist, to give us some tips on transfers. And while you're doing your intro, Elaine, I'm going to cue up the video and you let me know when to start, okay?
Elaine, I believe you're muted.
Elaine?
Thank you.
Elaine.
Can everybody hear me now?
Okay, great. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So my role is I'm an occupational therapist at PACE of the Triad. And what we try to do is make sure that people can function at their best ability without taxing the caregiver physically. So I'm going to give you some basic tips for transfers. But before we do that, we will show a video. But before we do that, I want you to follow some basic rules. One of them is know the precautions and the abilities of the person you're caring for and what they can do as far as weight bear on their legs. The next is to recognize signs and symptoms of dizziness or shortness of breath. These all might indicate problems with heart function and lung function. And when getting somebody to the edge of the bed, let them get their bearings. Be sure you're communicating in a very kind and supportive way so that they feel ease about getting to the edge of the bed without popping up, which when we go from edge of bed to standing too quickly, we can have trouble with our blood pressure, and that can cause us to pass out and fall. So when we're doing any type of care, it's really important just to slow down. And also, I want you to remember to have your loved one do as much as they can. And the way you can know how much they can do is to consult with an occupational therapist or a physical therapist or the caregivers who are getting them to do the most. That way you let them do as much as they can for as long as they can. If you jump in and do things for them, you will create declines. And what we want them to do is to be as strong as they can be for a long time. Now I'd like to go through the video. And this is a
Okay.
short video, but people who can't see, I'm going to give you a little exercise as well.
All right. I'm going to hit start, okay?
So after you, go ahead. So after
Okay.
you've talked to your loved one, you're going to ask them to scoot to the edge of the bed. Now, this is a physical therapist who is applying a gait belt, and she's assisting her loved one to the edge of the bed. She's going to have her feet firmly planted on the ground with them shoulder width apart. The caregiver uses a gait belt to guide her loved one in a forward position. Notice that the PT squats in order to save her back and brings her loved one to her. And she basically moves at the same rate as the participant. Please do not try to lift with a gait belt. The gait belt is simply to help them, to guide them from one position to the next. And when you see her going down into the chair, you see the physical therapist going with her, allowing her to do as much as possible, but just spotting her and making sure she's okay. This next part is about trying to make sure that you, if you have a weaker leg, that you know how to block it. And the physical therapist is basically taking her leg, supporting below the knee or on the shin, to prevent the weaker leg from buckling during the transfer. For those of you who can't see the video, what I want, and even if you can see the video, I want to encourage you to do just a couple of exercises. And one first thing I want you to do is just stand up and then sit back down. And then next time I want you to stand up slowly and sit back down. And do it a third time, only this time I want you to close your eyes and think of where your legs are. Know that when you come to a standing position that you should be able to see your toes over your knees. And these are the normal ways of standing up, and these are the positions that best help you to help your loved one to get in a good position so you're not going to take too much weight and they're going to do the best they can. Lastly, I just want to address that there's sometimes, pretty often, that people may resist you wanting to get them up and to moving to various positions. Again, I like what Taylor said about don't take things too personally. Be very patient and slow down. Oftentimes, if you have somebody who's resistive, the behavior is indicating something even of fear or mistrust, or just not plainly wanting to do it. Sometimes we just have to sing a nice song, a happy song, get them in the rhythm. It sort of distracts them. And then before you know it, they're standing with you, probably wanting to dance, and you can kind of just dance into the next service. I hope this is helpful, and I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Elaine. Just wanted to check the chat box, Jody, to see if there are any questions at this time for Elaine or Taylor.
Not on the chat. Anyone want to unmute themselves and ask Elaine a question about transfers? Elaine is very trained. Do you have some other questions? Again, please just don't be shy, but right now I don't see any.
Okay. All right. Well, if there aren't any, we'll go ahead and allow Ellen to present about elimination and incontinence. And Ellen, I think you're muted. You're muted.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I'm in good company, though. Good evening. My name is Ellen Smith. I am here to support you as you're caring for someone with changing elimination needs. I am a nurse, and And I'm very excited to be here helping you because caregiving is a hard job, and I certainly appreciate all that you do. This topic is also hard because elimination is a very personal and a very private matter. It makes it hard on caregivers to help with, and it makes it hard on care recipients to accept help in. So let's start with actually things that you can do early on. It's important to start managing elimination early. Start now to build routines into your caregiving day that will help people keep control of their elimination as long as possible. Maybe they already have bowel habits or toileting habits. Get to know what those are. Do they perhaps have a bowel movement after lunch many days? Do they get up and have a cue for you when they need to go to the bathroom? Maybe they have a worried look on their face, a fidget, they get up and move around. Start noticing those habits and incorporate trips to the bathroom before they happen. Make note of what the pattern is, and make you a toileting schedule that meets the needs before it becomes a problem. Perhaps your person is already incontinent or has accidents. Start noting when those happen as well. Is there a pattern? Could you take them to the toilet ahead of when that pattern occurs and give them a chance to toilet on their own and avoid the accident? So get to know the cues, work a schedule around your loved one, and you may be able to get somebody more continent, or at least keep them in control of their elimination a little longer. You also want to make sure that your loved one is as independent as possible for as long as possible. Maybe they have a trouble remembering where the bathroom is. If that's the case, put a sign on the door that says bathroom, or a picture they can recognize that means bathroom. Maybe you need to put a sign out in the hall that they can see from their bedroom or from wherever they spend the majority of the daytime. Night lights also help people see how to get to the bathroom safely in the dark. Another thing important for independence is what clothing are they wearing? You want your loved one to be able to manage their clothing as long as they can by themselves. You may need to move away from belts or buttons or zippers or hook closures at some point and change over to elastic waisted pants, for example, or some women actually enjoy going with a skirt or a dress. At some point, though, your loved one may need more help, and it's good for you to just be nearby in the bathroom. They need help taking the clothes off, and they can manage from there, or maybe they just need help getting their clothes back on. So starting those habits early and often builds that teamwork that you're going to need as incontinence advances. It's going to be more comfortable for you and for them if you started working together at a earlier spot. At some point, you may need to help with the cleanup, and that's going to be the difficult part. But again, if you've been working together on that, if you let them do it as long as possible, that's going to make that a little easier. And when it comes time to clean up, it's going to be important for you to have a few supplies on hand, like medical gloves, wet wipes, which I don't have any at my house to show you right now, but wet wipes. So have those available. Any other kind of supplies that you need while in the bathroom, have those on hand. And during these times, specifically, it's always good to have extras on hand in case you run into problem finding replacements later on. If your loved one has a sudden change in elimination needs, or really a sudden change in condition at all, please check with your physician or your primary care provider. Sometimes this is a sign of a medical problem that needs to be looked into related to elimination. Your doctor or primary care provider may have suggestions on dietary changes or recommend limiting fluid after a certain time in the day if nighttime accidents are happening. They may want to see the loved one to work up for the medical problem or make a change in a medication. If your loved one does become incontinent, there are products that can help you manage this at home. They are designed to contain the liquid or the stool, to reduce odor, to preserve dignity, because they help keep those accidents out of the view of other people. They also save you the work of having to do more laundry and cleaning more things up. So there's another advantage for you. We'll start by talking about incontinence pads. These are just small liners that fit inside the underwear. They will catch any leaks. These are really easy to change and are really meant for people who just have a little leak or two, don't really have large accidents usually, because they don't contain a whole lot of liquid. So those are really good for just the occasional leak or the occasional problem. The next product I have to show you is a pull-on kind of brief. I don't know if you can see it very well or not, but it replaces the underwear. They are put on when you get dressed in the morning, and they're changed at the toilet when you need to. They're really for people who can get up and about, because it's easier for people to change those for people who can sit and stand. And lastly, we have briefs that are for people that are mostly incontinent and not really as able to participate in toileting or standing. You can see they're flat and they come up and they have tabs that attach on the sides. These resemble diapers that are used for infants. You put those on when you dress in the morning, and they're changed. They can be changed if the person can pull up and stand for a moment at the toilet, but they're really more easily changed in the bed. Did you notice that I said briefs and not diapers or pull-ups? You know, words matter. Asking an adult to wear a diaper is deflating and discouraging. Using the word brief is meant to preserve your loved one's dignity a little bit and help them adapt and adjust. Now, some people have problems with sleeping overnight and a bed getting soiled. That is uncomfortable for the patient, the loved one. It's also a lot more work for you. But there are products that you can use for that too. There are rubberized or vinyl fitted bottom sheets that you can put on over the mattress and then put the regular fitted sheet underneath it. There are protective pads, also called blue pads or chucks, that can be placed under the hips to catch leaks in the brief or nighttime accidents. Those chucks can also be used in chairs or in the car and to protect during the daytime. Now, incontinence also adds to the risk of skin breakdown, especially if cleanup is not well done. So step in and help with cleanup when you need to. Be sensitive to this, though, because your loved one is probably no more comfortable with this than you are. Gently clean the skin with the wet wipe. For women, always wipe from front to back. Gently pat the skin dry with a soft cloth or a paper towel. Note if there is any redness or irritation or breaks in the skin. This most likely will happen in skin folds, where the elastic of the brief meets the skin, and at pressure points like the sit bones or the tailbone, or maybe on their hips if they're mainly side lying in the bed. Let your nurse or doctor or primary care provider know early on if you see any of this redness or irritation of the skin breakdown, because there are certain special instructions they can give you to help heal the skin. I've got a few minutes for questions, maybe. So I'll open up for questions now.
I do not see any questions through the chat feature. We do have plenty of time. If you have questions for Taylor, for Elaine, for Ellen, social worker, nurse, occupational therapist, at your disposal. If you have any questions, please just unmute yourself.
I have a question, or I'm not quite getting the names of people. I got Stephanie Wallace at Pace, Taylor, last name Zinsky, some kind of social worker. I didn't get her name. I'd just like to have them to write them down and refer to them if I need to. I've taken a few notes.
Good.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Stephanie Wallace. You got that right. I'm an intake coordinator PACE.
Your intake, did you say intake coordinator?
Yes, ma'am. I help
Okay.
adults get into the program. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, it kind of blanked out when I didn't hear the whole thing. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And my name's Elaine, and I'm an occupational therapist. No need to worry about the last name. There are very few people named Elaine. But it is
Okay.
Nosal, but I'm the occupational therapist.
Okay, occupation. I put therapist. Okay, occupational
Good
PA.
deal, definitely.
Okay, and then what was I know this may not be important. What was Taylor's last name?
It's
Zabinski.
it's Zabinski, but you can just put Z.
Z.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, I put blank Vinsky. Okay, thank you. Thank you. And Elaine Smith was the nurse, right?
Ellen.
Oh no, Ellen Smith.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you all so much.
Ellen, I do have a good question for you.
Okay.
In terms of, frequency for bathing, is there a recommended amount per week, in terms of skin integrity and just making sure we're not bathing too much or too little?
That is a great question. And I believe that when this group got together to plan what we were going to cover, we agreed we would primarily cover bathing next time. But I would say that as people age, they don't need to be bathed as often as a general rule because their skin does not generate the same amount of oils. And they're really not, for the most part, they're really not out doing heavy lifting, construction, hard work. They're really not sweating as much. Having said that, though, everybody is an individual. Some people still have a lot of very active sweat and oil glands on their skin and would need to be bathed more often. If you're incontinent, you do need to have your peri area washed and cleaned very well more than once a day. But for a general bathing, no, you could probably do that every other day, maybe twice a week.
I would like to comment on that since I work with that quite a bit with bathing with loved ones. And the common question is, I cannot get my loved one into a shower. And that often happens. The first stages of that you'll see is that they may want to bathe themselves at the sink because they don't want water in their face or their head. And I just like people to understand that when you have the diagnosis of dementia or Alzheimer, you lose skills in the reverse order that you gain them. So if you think about the baby who is bathing, who doesn't like water on his face, these are the kinds of things that we lose at the end. So honestly, as long as you're not having an odor, you are most of the time we want people socially acceptable so that when they go into an adult day health center, that people still want to interact with them as a part of their quality of life. And generally, we keep a good eye on that. I think most adult day health centers do that so that everybody can be accepting. But it's only been in the current century that people bathe daily. And if you think about the old days, really, people bathed maybe once a week. That was a luxury. Some not more than once a month, but they just kept themselves well cleaned. So I think we get caught up in our luxuries in the United States that we can, and we are afforded to be able to do that, but it's not the most important thing for health.
Elaine, while I have you here, there is a question for you.
Okay.
Can you address if when your loved one does not bear weight, they're non-weight bearing, what are the options for transferring at that point?
If you have somebody who isn't able to stand, We do, there's a number of things you can work on. One is, one that is people seem like they don't want to do is to use a sliding board. So it's basically a board that can be anywhere from 2 feet to 3 feet long that you put underneath the leg and hip and the buttocks of the person, and you simply slide them over from one surface to the other. The other options are they have a mechanical lift that allows them to stand. Say maybe they can do weight bearing, but they're avoiding weight bearing, and it allows them to hold on to something, and it kind of reduces the fear factor, and it still gives them that standing sensation, which anytime we can get people in the upright position, you get good orientation, which means then they get better function and better interactions with whomever they're trying to interact with. Lastly, there is what we call a Hoyer lift. And a Hoyer lift requires somebody to be in bed. You put a pad underneath them by moving them side to side, half on one, half on the other. And it basically has a 4-point lift where it lifts them up and it kind of cradles them into a sling and then gently puts them in the chair. Now, there's a lot of perceptions about Hoyers that it might be scary, that it seems very like we wouldn't think our loved ones would like that. But oftentimes, don't get me wrong, there are people who are afraid of them when they're in them, but oftentimes it cradles them and gives them that deep touch that actually soothes them and allows them to get into the chair very gently. So those are some of the considerations.
Thank you. I don't see any other current questions via chat. Does any of our attendees have a question? Don't think there are any more questions. Did you have anything else that you needed to share? I think there's a last slide that had some contact information, and also please know that you can call or contact myself at Wellspring Solutions. Again, I'm Jody Kawada, and just so pleased to be able to partner with PACE of the Triad to offer our virtual boot camp. I look forward to be able to do this hopefully next year hands-on and in person with you. But here is some information on how to contact PACE of the Triad.
We want to thank you all for joining us this evening. And if you have any questions, please feel free to give us a call at PACE at 336-550-4046. That's the intake line, and we can answer your questions and give you the proper information that you need. Thank you again for joining our presentation this evening. We really appreciate your time.
And just again, if you would like to, if you would benefit from some support group information, you can check out our information at Wellspring Solutions, and also call PACE and ask for Taylor. Any other questions? Well, thanks everybody so much for joining us. Everybody stay well, and I hope that you stay in good spirits, and please just be well.
Thank you.